So yeah, so welcome. So the way that what I want to talk about first of all is kind of give you like kind of macro level data on where we're at the moment as of January 2026. The models you want to focus on if you want to choose certain models to optimize for. AI overview is by far like leading currently because AI overview I mean, they appear in roughly half of the search queries on Google. Google get 5-6 billion monthly users, and roughly half of those show AI overview responses. So you want to be sure that you're targeting that. It's based on a Gemini model, but the responses on AI overview are different than what Gemini produces. I actually wrote a post about that, showing the differences between AI overview, Gemini, and AI mode. They're all based on the Gemini family of models, but different responses because they're trained differently. They have different system instructions. A lot of things are different about them, and the actual brands that they mentioned there are different. So okay, so essentially, then we have recent data. So the main ones, the main models I want to look at are ChatGPT and AI Overview, and the Gemini family of models. Essentially, they are like the leaders at the moment, and that's where you want to focus your attention. I found this yesterday. SimilarWeb came out with some data also. They're also supporting the fact that OpenAI, I mean ChatGPT and Gemini are the main players at the moment. They left out AI overviews, which is the biggest player out there, and also AI mode. But essentially, I mean, this is consistent with the data that we also collected. And just like quick kind of like recent discoveries that could be interesting for you that I wanted to share is the fact that LinkedIn Pulses has become a pretty large source of citations, increasing. It's still like only around 1% of all citations, but the LinkedIn Pulses are actually LinkedIn articles. They become a larger portion of the citations of the models. So you want to start writing content on LinkedIn as well, and articles. And Reddit has really dropped. In the mid-September, we saw data where the citations from Reddit dropped from 14% to about 0.5% overnight by ChatGPT. So Reddit really kind of like dropped in terms of the credibility that ChatGPT were associating with them. I think they realized that people were gaming Reddit, and so it still appears it's still a pretty big player in the citations. I'll show you data on that later, but it's not as powerful or as I mean an influencer as it was a few months ago. And just generally, we found out that LLMs, TXT, no models actually reading that. We checked. You can see it in the server logs. You can see that if the models are picking up that file, and I mean, it's just not it's not worth dealing with it too much. But it's easy to build to create the file, so you can just toss it on your server, and maybe one day the models will read it. I can talk more about that file, how that works, and what it is if you like later. Let's dive in. So essentially, I want to kind of start with, I mean, how does this all work? And it's important to understand, I mean, the whole flow of how the models work in order to know how to then reverse engineer it, and then you'll understand how our playbook was devised. So essentially, when you ask a model a prompt, all the models today, they will go and search the web for fresh data. I mean, models are trained and they're outdated, so they have their knowledge up until a few months ago, sometimes longer than that, and then they do all fresh Google and Bing to collect fresh data to respond to the prompt. Not all prompts, depending on the prompt. If they think they have the response within their knowledge, they'll answer from the response from within their knowledge. And there are other criteria sometimes where they don't actually search the web. But roughly 50-60% of the prompts, depending on type of prompt and country and all kinds of parameters, they will search the web. So they go out and they search the web. And when they search the web, they actually typically send out a few different search queries. So for example, ChatGPT will go to Bing and also Google, although unofficially only Bing. And typically ChatGPT would send two queries. And this is called the fan out queries. We'll talk about in a moment. So they take the prompt and they break it into several queries, which they run simultaneously in order to collect fresh data. And they run these prompts locally to the user. If the user is in the UK, they'll run it in the local UK Bing and Google and see the local results. And that's important. Yeah, sorry, okay, sorry, right? Yeah, sorry, okay, you're muted, great. So essentially, we're gonna get it goes out and searches the web, and as I mentioned, you get the LLMs. They see a user prompt, and then they break it into several regular search queries, and this is called the query fan out for whoever is not familiar with that term, and they run the search. Now the search does not run on regular SERP or regular interface of Google or Bing. They use APIs, and they don't fetch just 10 responses. They typically collect between 20 to 30 different results. And they choose among those results what are the most relevant results to the user prompt. And they look at 4 parameters. They look at the title of each result, the domain, the date, and a snippet, a little summary that talks about what's inside that result. And based on those 4 parameters, each model will then select typically 5 to 8, but it depends, links that will then go into, visit, and fully read out. And then based on that information, it will then respond to the user. Now, how many links or citations does each model have in the response? ChatGPT has quite a lot. It's 25 on average. And this is the data from the last 3 months. It changed recently. So 25 Grok, I mean, they come back with like 43 different citations. But so ChatGPT is 25. And this is interesting because essentially ChatGPT typically sends out 2 search queries. And they look at about 50 sources. And then they cite about 25 of those. That means that 50% of the responses that they actually consider are actually cited in their response. And that is huge. And what does this mean? It means that you have 50% chance of being cited by ChatGPT if you have content that will come up for their search queries, Now, how do we find those queries? So we have, well, it's not really available. I mean, technically it's not out there and available. But what you can do, we built out this Chroma extension, and what it does, so apparently those queries, you can find them in the communication between the client and the server, ChatGPT.com, the client and the network. There's a way to go out and find that data. It's in a JSON. That for some reason the server tells the client, the data, and it doesn't appear anywhere in the UI, but for some reason it's there. So we wrote this Chrome extension for internal use, for research, to see all of the queries that ChatGPT ran in the backend to search for fresh content. And this is free. You can look for ChatGPT Query Fan Out Inspector on Google Chrome Store, install it, and then every time you run a query on ChatGPT, it'll like come up with like a little marker and tell you that it has new data, and then you can see what are the fan out queries, and you can export them, and you can then write content that's optimized for those queries. And it also lists all the citations and with all the data that the ChatGPT sees when it considers the data sources. So this is critical. And why is this interesting? Because you want now to optimize your content to answer, to respond, to come up when people search like the models, not like the humans. You want to be able to search, you want to optimize content to these query fan out. Now, so we do 2 things. So first of all, we say, this is the first piece. You want to know how the models are searching the web. 1. 2, we look at all the citations, and this is something a little bit more advanced, but you can also do this by yourself, and I'll explain this. What we do, we look at all of the cited sources, and then we reverse engineer them. We look at all their properties to try to understand what is it about them. Why were they cited? To try to learn what are the patterns of the winning data sources. So we look at everything. We look at the page title, we generate a summary from the content, we look at the keywords, we look at the tone of voice, we look at when was it created, updated, does it have author credentials, and all these parameters. We check to see how long was the content, how many images, does it have an FAQ section, what's the hierarchy of the text, does it have schema markup types, what kind of links does it have. We look at all of the properties to try to find out the patterns that characterize the cited sources. We want to try to find out how we can also create content that will also be cited. So then you can go out and you can then go out and take the list from here of the citations of the data sources, and then take the HTML, toss it into like Gemini or to some kind of a LLM that can take a lot of context, and then start and ask it to analyze the properties and do this thing by yourself. But Spotlight will do this for you, and I'll show you how it's done in a moment. But that's something that you can do on your own. Or using automation. So generally, so we understand that, okay, we have the prompts, and we want to take from the prompts the query fan out. We want to take the search terms that they use, and then we want to create precise content that's based on those search queries, using also the properties of the cited websites. So we want to create content that is shaped like the data sources that are being cited today, because we know those are ranking. But then the question is, but which prompts should we actually base this whole strategy on? And that's the basis of this whole thing. So essentially, That's where it comes in, that we come in with like an estimate prompt volume estimate. And this is a pretty complex topic. The data of prompt volume is not publicly available anywhere on the web. Every AI provider knows the volume themselves, but it's not shared anywhere, and that's kind of hard data to find. So what we do, we have this data. We built our own proprietary system to find this data. I'll share with you how you can do it yourself for free. But essentially, the way that we do it, we buy data from user panels, like kind of think SimilarWeb, and like there's a few different panels where they have like hundreds of thousands of people who consented to share their conversations, and then so we have the real-time daily prompt data where we see what people are actually prompting for. Problem with that is that the number of people is not necessarily statistically significant in all of the demographics and geographies that we'd like to cover. So that's one data point. Then we have another data point, which is the Google ecosystem. We know that people search for things, they search on Google things that they also search for in AI, and they might search for things differently. An AI prompt is not like a Google search term, but the essence and the intent are the same. So we're deeply integrated into Google like trends and search volume, and we pull data from there. So that's a different data point. And then a third data point is where we found certain models that were trained on interactions between humans and older models. So these newer models know what people used to be prompting a few months ago. So they just tell us, they give us a lot of insight on how people are prompting and what. And so that's another data point. And then we consolidate prompts that have the same essence and intent into one. So then every prompt that we then come up and say, hey, yeah, this prompt has X volume, is essentially a prompt that's actually representing all the prompts that share the same essence and intent. So it doesn't have to be necessarily written like this, but when you prompt to an AI, it doesn't really matter how you write the prompt. AIs understand. So essentially, you can write it in different ways with typos, and it understands. So this actually represents all the prompts that mean the same thing. So how can you do this by yourself? What you can do, you can do this part. I mean, for free. You can actually go to like Google like AdWords, like they have a search volume tool or the search like the volume estimator in Google Ads, and then you can pull keywords that you're targeting, and then you can use AI to consolidate. I mean, those keywords based on intent and essence, and then get like the Google traffic, and that will give you like a pretty good proxy. And I mean, that'd be good enough, I think. I mean, it would be better than nothing. Today, you have nothing. Unless if you're working with Spotlight or one of the few other tools out there that provide prompt volume. So then at the end, you end up with the prompts that you want to track, and they're the estimated volume. And this, by the way, is not it's not an actual absolute number of volume. It's like an index. It's a relative index that gives you like an idea of how often people are searching for every prompt. It's per, specifically in Spotlight, it's per geography and based on data from the last 2 months. So for example, this prompt would be is prompted about twice the times that this prompt is being asked in the US, for example. So this is kind of like how that works. So let's talk about playbooks, and I'm going to show you kind of like in practice, I mean, how this is done in a moment. But so essentially, the idea is the playbook is split into 3 parts, and this is working really well for us. I mean, we're seeing like really high increase. People who stick to this playbook, it's working really well. So essentially, we have 3 sections. We have the owned content, the third-party content, and kind of like the fundamentals. In the owned content part, this is the part where, first of all, you want to identify what are the relevant high-volume prompts. Now, finding the high-volume prompts is not enough. You might have high-volume prompts that won't drive a quality traffic that will convert or that's relevant. So you want to find out what are the high-volume prompts, and then you want to clean out from those. I mean, the ones that are the prompts that are not relevant to you, and only the ones that you are aligned with your marketing objectives. So first of all, you want to find those prompts. Then you want to find out how those prompts, how the models actually search the web when those prompts are asked. And you want to get those queries, those search queries. Essentially, this whole thing is based on SEO. Essentially, you want to appear in the first 3 results. It's easier than SEO. I mean, GEO is easier than SEO if you know the search queries, because in SEO you're typically optimizing for the first 5, first 10 search results, but in GEO you have to be the first 30, and that's not so hard to do. If you're accurate, that's not hard to do. And I had like no name brands like appear like in the first third in the third page overnight. I mean, easily. It's not so hard. So you want to find out, I mean, what the search terms are. And then if you want to go deeper, you want to then analyze like the patterns, the properties of the current cited sources. So you know how the models are choosing their their data sources. I mean, what are the properties? I mean, what kind of content, and what's kind of like the tone of voice, and how long. So there you get like insight on how you want to write your content, and then you can create the optimized content. So you have the how, you have what keywords you're optimizing for, and then this is like very like targeted. It's very direct. This works very well. So that's kind of like on your own content, and you want to put this first of all on your own website, but you also want to place it in other places. Where? So I'm going to show you in the tool in a moment, I mean, how we find where to put the content. But essentially, you want to identify which domains and what content is currently influencing the models the most, and then you want to reach out to those places, and you want to then have them try to get them to mention you, or speak more highly of you, or if it's Reddit or a forum that maybe you want to add a comment yourself. And we're going to talk about that in a moment when we go into like some examples. Or maybe add like a guest blog or some PR on like domains that you see that the models are finding credible, and it changes per brand, per industry, and per country. We see that we have like a lot of data where we see like trends of which domains are more influencing the models. But then once you dive into a specific use case of a certain brand or a certain geography, you see that it's totally different. So you want to just run like an audit and see where the models are currently getting their data. And we'll see that an example in just a moment. And then finally, last part, but this is actually probably the first part of the playbook, you want to have, I mean, your SEO down, at least, all the technical elements, being able JavaScript friendly, or static HTML where like the models can read you, no blocking from robots, or a sitemap. There's a lot of things, I mean, like the basics of the SEO you want to have down. You want your content to stay fresh, because we see that models, they like fresh content. So does Google, but mostly models, they like to see content for the last 3 months, 6 months. I have like a graphic and show you that kind of, you can see how they prefer like the more recent content. And you want to have an overall like entity authority that talks about your persistence of your entity. I mean, across different medias, or if it's on LinkedIn and maybe on review sites and on Google My Business and your own website. You have to stay consistent with your messaging. And that's a whole like topic which I can talk about a little later. But I'm going to dive now into like more hands-on, practical, how we actually do this, how we actually do this in practice. So let's jump into an example here with Nespresso. And so Nespresso, I mean, they're not a client. That's why I'm showing this example. And you also see that their graphs are not going up so much, because they're not a client. So essentially, I mean, the idea is, I mean, and this is also for existing users. I'm going to show you some new features that we have here that you might not be aware of. So first of all, here what we have is just a list of topics that we're tracking. We have a list of prompts that we're tracking that the system helped find that have high volume and the Nespresso, the brand, wants to appear in the responses. So the system goes out and sends out all the prompts to all the models every week and pulls the responses and then analyzes them. And then we see here which brands appear in the response, and we found that Nespresso appeared first out of 8 brands that were mentioned, and we pull all of the data sources that we're going to do a lot of analysis with in a moment. And most importantly, this is new, we're also pulling out all of the search queries that the models used in order to find those citations and the data sources. And this is the game changer that we're going to be using a lot now. So we have this data per topic. We see all the presence, the average rank, the sentiment analysis. We see the other players that are appearing, other brands that are appearing in the responses. See this data per model, and we can see all this data in the eyes of other brands. And we can add and remove brands to see like how they're also appearing and how they're performing. And just really quickly, for people who never saw the system before, we have different analyses, like you can how the brand appears for every customer journey stage, and the awareness, consideration stage, etc. The sentiment of the brand for every stage, of which other brands appear for each one of these different stages. The system classifies the prompts per customer journey stage, and you can also configure that if you disagree with the classification. We have other analyses that kind of talk about the competitive landscape of the brand versus competitors. and we have all kinds of other analyses. Now, so what we do, and we have a few new things, and I'll show you. But first of all, we take all the data sources, and the data sources are really the heart, the core of the strategy. Where we take the data sources, we see where the models are getting the responses. So see here, for example, that 111 responses relied on consumerreports.org, and we see that 68 responses relied on this specific URL, and we can see exactly which were the prompts, which were the models that cited this URL. But we know this URL, we want to make sure that we look good on that URL, that we appear on it, and that we look good on it. So we know, what is currently affecting the models. We'll talk about Reddit in a moment. And you can also see that per model. So where's ChatGPT getting its data? By the way, you'll notice no Reddit, because Reddit is less less of a source down for ChatGPT. But other models are still citing Reddit quite a bit. So first of all, we have, this kind of overview of where the models are getting their information. And as I mentioned earlier, we also, you can also analyze, reverse engineer the content and, the data sources. And here we have a reverse engineering tool where it kind of gives you all the information about every piece of a data source to understand, how it's structured, how it's built, the links, and how many words and letters and when it was created, and all of this data. This helps us actually. You can use this if you're a data geek like me, but this just helps the system then create content for you that will be optimized based on the latest properties of how the models are choosing their content, and it changes all the time. So we're always analyzing and updating the way that we create the content. And now we have this new section here for existing users where you can find, and this is really important. Here you can find for every prompt how it is searching the web. So here, for example, this prompt here, what home coffee machines are designed for ease of use, blah blah. So then we can see how each one of the models is actually searching the web, ChatGPT. How it's searching Google and Bing. So, and then this is how we then are going to optimize our content. We're going to target these keywords. And we can collect this data, these fan out queries, or the query fan out. We can collect them for ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Claude. Those are the three models that we can currently get that data for. So this is that's another section. Now, so here's the cool fun part. So we talked a lot about the strategy and now how do we implement this, and at the end I promise it's going to be really, really easy, and not going to have all these pages, and it's going to be really, really easy for you. But what we do here, we find the prompts. These are all the prompts that did not mention the brand, and this is the most highest volume prompt that didn't mention Nespresso. So then we have this tool here that's new, and it's what it does. It will suggest content ideas, and the way it does it. It looks at all of the data sources that the brands cited, and it's going to analyze them and learn, get their properties. And it's also going to take the keywords that were used by the models to search the web. And then I'm going to say, all right, go ahead, use all this content and data and suggest content. And now what it's going to do, so it's going to analyze all those data sources. And so it's going to find out all the properties, learn their content, look to see how fresh they are, check now what was the tone of voice and how long they are and what are the keywords there. And then it's going to create now a couple sets of content that are optimized using the properties of these other cited data sources and targeting the keywords that the models use in order to search for content. And it's going to come back with two lists. One list is content that's aligned with all of these cited sources. So here, for example, here we go. So it comes back with content that's aligned with cited sources. And interesting, that's 2025. We'll fix that in a moment. It shows us ideas or for content that are aligned with the content and the properties of the cited content. And then it also comes with all kinds of ideas that are different, that offer something fresh. Because we have a theory, and so far it's been working not bad. We see that models want to cite content that can offer something new or something fresh to the discussion. So they have something else to talk about. So I like to take one of these ideas and one of these ideas and then create the content. And before we create the content, I'm just going to show you real quick that here we have, it looks at listicles, it looks at articles, it analyzes them separately. It looks at, it takes it creates a histogram that shows you how fresh the existing content is. So for example, if you find that the content is older, and here we see that the majority of content is actually older than a month, then that's great. There's more of an opportunity. There's a higher chance that your content is going to be cited by the models. And it also shows you like the keywords, and it gives you like a whole analysis of like what every piece of content or that was cited includes, and all kinds of properties. But let's go ahead and actually act on this. Let's say, all right, let's go ahead and take this piece of this suggestion, and we'll go ahead. You can copy this as a brief and then create the content by yourself. But let's say, all right, let's have the system do it for me. So I'm going to click create content, and now what it's going to do, it's going to take that brief, and it's going to take the title and the search keywords that we want it to target, and let's actually change this to 2026, and have it actually search things that are relevant for, these are the keywords that the content is going to target. And then you can add to this section, the brand information and the kind of tone of voice, your custom instructions, or some information about competitors. You just have to add that one time, and it's not mandatory, but it'll help create better content. And then now what this system is going to do, it's now going to create an optimized piece of content that contains all the properties that our research found that need to be included in the content. And it's going to use the tone of voice, and it's going to use this brief, and it's going to target the keywords that we're targeting, and it's going to be good to go pretty much. I mean, you could essentially shoot it out and already publish it. I mean, I'd review it, just make sure that it all kind of everything there is okay, and it's still work in progress. It's in beta. I mean, we're still improving it, but I already released a bunch of pieces of content from this tool without touching the content, and it's been working really well. I just made sure that it was indexed by Google, send it to the Google Search Console, which soon we're also going to include in this tool, where it'll automatically index it for you, or submit it to the Google Search Console. And then I want to make sure that it's indexed. And then here we have this piece of content. It's ready. It has the citations and the quotes and the FAQ and the H2 headers with the question mark and the self-contained sentences and all the things that we found that the models are looking for when they choose content to cite. And then you can go ahead and edit this, or you can copy this as is and paste it into your, whatever tool you have, or you can just use our WordPress integration to just shoot it up into your WordPress. We're going to support more CMSs soon, or put it on LinkedIn. We found that recently that LinkedIn has now been, as I mentioned, much more cited recently. So we have this tool end to end, and then I'm just going to show you a couple more tools, and then I'm going to show you what's like. How we can all do how easily you can do this every week. So we have this other tool I just want to show you really quick that kind of takes your existing content and scores it and shows you kind of like where you're at. And this is not new, but we kind of improves a little bit this feature a little bit. Kind of like takes your existing content and shows you all kinds of technical factors and all kinds of content factors that you can improve in your existing content. And then I want to show you another tool here that talks about where we kind of track all of your content. We track all your content and show you the performance of each piece of content. So here, for example, this post here, we can see over time how often each one of the models has cited this piece of content. So if I click here in the last run a few days ago, we can see which models and which prompts were used in order to cite this piece of content. So how well your content is performing, and you have like an overview here of like what is your share of the citations, what's your share of how much are you influencing the narrative. So here, for example, 2.5% of all of the citations are Nespresso owned. It could be either from the Nespresso domain or their YouTube. You can add any URL that's not also on your domain to track and then to see the performance of your own content. And then we have like a Google Analytics tool, just a new feature we added here for our existing users. You can connect your GA4 to Spotlight and see how much traffic is coming in from the models. Typically, traffic doesn't come directly from models, but the few that do, they'll come up here. You'll see from which models are coming in, and you can also see the conversion events. You can also add events and track events that happened from traffic that came in from different models. See which web pages the models landed on. We have all kinds of the timeline is we have this section here where you can add activity that you did, log activity that you did, or things that you tried to do, and then you can track and see how it moved the needle across like different topics and prompts and models. So you can really analyze what's going on. Now I just want to bring this back up and say, all right, I showed you like a lot of details, a lot of stuff here, and eventually at the end of the day, we made it really, really simple. All you need is these two tabs over here. The first tab will give you the weekly performance. That kind of gives you a high level where you're at, overall brand presence, where you're at per model, like over time, kind of like the health of your brand, and kind of like the main things you want to see. And then you have here this section, which is relatively new, where we say, listen, if you do these things this week, you're good. This is kind of like what you need to do to be, to do like the 80%, and you can always do more. But I mean, this is really all you need to do. So what we do here is 3 action items. One is to create content. We find, all the prompts that are like the lowest hanging fruit, where we find high value, where the data sources might be a little bit outdated, and you have a higher chance of appearing. So these are like the prompts that you want to go and create content for first. So here you can go from here and directly click, and then go ahead and it'll go ahead and create content for you. I mean, 2 clicks and boom, you have a piece of content that's ready. So that's one thing that you have. Second thing is the Reddit posts. Here we list all the posts, the Reddit posts, or the most cited Reddit posts that are related to your prompts. And here you can see also which were the prompts that you tracked that cited the post. Now, with Reddit, there are a few strategies here. You'll find that some Reddit posts are archived; they're locked, and you can't add or comment or upvote to the post. But so there are a few different types of play here, and Reddit is tricky. This one, for example, this Reddit post is not locked. So here you could add a comment, or you could comment to a comment, or you could upvote something that's good for your brand. And I mean, but you have to be really delicate with Reddit, because I mean, you need karma sometimes, and you have these admins and the moderators, and it's a really sensitive and delicate space. And we're working now. We're trying to get like a vendor to work with us to help this. If somebody will want kind of like an extra service to do this, then we will try to have a vendor that will help you with this. But essentially, I mean, you can do this by yourself. You want to add a comment, and you want to affect an existing post. But some Reddit, you'll find that some of the Reddit posts are locked, and when they're locked, or when they're archived, here, this one's archived. So here's a hack. Here's a trick. And so what you can do, what we found recently, is that although a post is archived, you can actually reach out to the guy who wrote the post, or girl who wrote the post, and ask them to change it. They can still edit it. Or you can go to the highest, most voted comment, reach out to that person, and ask them to edit their comment, and they can. I did it. And that's a hack. And I think that's actually there's some gold there that you can kind of play with that. You can't do any upvotes or anything besides editing existing content. So that's and another, by the way, thing I would do is once I'd actually add a comment to every Reddit post that's relevant to you, so that in the future, if it's archived, you can then still kind of change it around and play with it. Now, so then the third action item that we have here is actually reaching out to the most influencing websites. So we saw earlier the list of all the data sources that the models cite. And here we take like the top domains that the models are citing. And the idea here is to reach out to these websites, kind of like backlinks with SEO, but here it's kind of like back mentions or something. It's a new field that nobody coined like a name for this yet, but essentially the idea is reach out to these websites and see if they're willing to add a mention to your brand, or to speak more highly of you in an existing piece of content. So here, for example, in this website, I mean, I'd reach out and ask them if they are willing to mention espresso, and or rank them higher if it's a listicle. And this is something that you can do by yourself. We're working now on adding a button where you'll be able to click, and it'll automatically go and reach out for you and come back and tell you what the price would be, and then you can decide if it makes sense for you or not to then pay them. Typically, it's just like a few $100s to get like a webmaster to change existing content if they'll agree to. I mean, if it's a competitor, or a lot of websites won't agree, but this is like a new play, and you have all the you can do this by yourself, and hopefully we'll soon be able to also kind of make it easier for you to do it, kind of like streamlined. The last thing I'm going to mention before I'm going to like stop and break for questions, I just mentioned that there's an API. And we're working now on like integrations where you could like automate everything. The idea is eventually that you could use like an automation tool, if it's like N8N or Make.com or whatever you like to use, or like even MCP, to communicate with your data here, and then automate the whole process, so that you're creating content automatically, and there might be like a human in the loop, making sure that everything is like makes sense and aligned. But then you just publish it, and then just see the data and the numbers grow. Yeah, so I'm gonna stop there, and if there are any questions, this would be a great time to jump in.